Thank you very much. I just will share with you that the council has had some discussion with our attorney about this. It's something that we're talking about. I've also had discussions with the Minister Alliance here in town about this topic, and so we are talking about it. And so I appreciate your input on that. Any others that would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is a presentation of an award this evening. So we've got some representatives here from the North Central Texas Council of Governments and some recognition of one of our very own. So Kelly Williams and Jason Smith, if y'all want to come forward and tell us the good news.
I want to thank City Council of Stephenville for allowing us to come tonight and honor one of our own. We're with North Central Texas Council of Governments. We have jurisdiction over about 550 different telecommunicators, or dispatchers, as they're more commonly known to you guys. And we recently had an award assembly where we recognized just a few of these, and one of your very own was one of the ones out of the 14 counties that we have, and that's going to be Christy Metzger. If you'll come up here, I'd like to tell them all about you. She's been with the Stephenville Police Department for 10 years now. Since 2008, and she's done a phenomenal job. Her Lieutenant Rudder has nominated her this last year as for the 911 Professional Award, where she goes above and beyond not only for the citizens of the city, but also for her other co-workers. She helps them in training. She's organized some training materials. She's an NCIC, TCIC instructor, and she also is a participant in our tag team, where goes out into the city and does city functions, teaching people how, when, and what to say when calling 911. So we're just really proud, and I think you guys should be proud of her too, that she is part of your community. So, thank you for being there for you.
All right. Well, Christy, congratulations. I know your husband's here with you tonight, and you got a lot to be proud of there, and we won't make you give a speech or anything, but it is a terribly important job, critical to the safety of this community, and for you to be recognized across a 14-county area is phenomenal. So thanks for the great work and for the nomination. It starts there. So it was a great teamwork, and congratulations. All right, Tarleton Roundup is a foundational event in our community. It's a great partnership between Tarleton and Stephenville, and this evening we've got a presentation from one of the students at Tarleton to give us an update on the 17th annual Tarleton Roundup. So if you want to come forward this time and give us the scoop.
My name is Patrick Smith. I just want to say thank you to Mayor Weldon and the City Council for having me here tonight to hear about Tarleton Roundup. But for those of you that don't know, Tarleton has been putting this event on annually for now its 17th year coming up. And what this event is designed to do is to reach out to the community that provides so much for us and give back to all of you that allow us to be here and allow this great city and school to thrive here. But before I talk about the event coming up this year, I'd like to kind of recap for you last year some of the things that took place. The project was called Project 952 last year. For those of you that know the tradition, it was said that John Tarleton walked 952 miles. So in that honor, our goal was to get 952 volunteers. We had about 950 sign up. Only about 752 showed up, so we were a little short. But this year we plan to break the 952 and be in the upwards range of over 1,000 volunteers. We had 112 different job sites lined up and ready to go. 11 of those sites we weren't able to complete due to safety issues or the use of power tools. Unfortunately, we can't use power tools in this event. But again, that set another record that we've never achieved before. We've never broken 100, and last year was the first year to do that. And looking forward into the next year, we want to break over 120 job sites actual completed job sites, and hopefully have enough, about 140 registered sites. Again, due to insurance issues or things for the school, there's some sites we unfortunately can't work at. This is an entirely student-led organization and event. Again, it's been going on for 17 years. It's something we're very proud of. A lot of these events include painting, raking, cleaning up the Bosque River, and working alongside the Keeping Stephen Beautiful Foundation. Some of the collections from last year, we filled over 4 trash bins that yielded over 30 yards of material each, and 4 truck trailers with waste. The SSC box truck was filled with recyclables to the point where it could not even close. And there were over 350 tires collected from the city of Stephenville to recycle. On top of that, Bulldog Shredding collected over 1,200 pounds of shredded documents. Our goal and our hopes for this year is that the city of Stephenville, along with the council, will provide any means of support, whether that's publicity or any businesses that would like to aid in our efforts, whether that's job sites. One thing we really want to branch out to this year is looking at businesses and places where people maybe need help around their actual business property, keeping that cleaned up, whether that's sweeping, dusting. We're open to really anything and everything that we can do to give back to this community that gives so much to us. In particular, the city of Stephenville was one of our biggest partners last year, and we thank you for that. We hope that you will again continue to help us, along with Keep Stephenville Beautiful project, and then progressive waste solutions as well. But we're open to everything, and this year going forward, we want to break new records. We want to have more volunteers, and we want more job sites. In the past, it has been particularly targeted at the elderly people and folks that need help with those everyday things, whether that's raking the leaves or anything around the house. This year, we want to expand that to the entire community, whether that's maybe you need the trash taken out, maybe you need your gutters cleaned. Whatever it is, we want to help and we want to give back. So this year, moving forward, we're completely open. I have a couple of flyers here for the city council to take. Other than that, if anybody has any questions, you can contact Sarah McCann or myself at the Office of Student Engagement at Tarleton. So
Okay,
thank you all for your time, and I appreciate it.
great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, and that is such a special part of Tarleton's participation in our community, and best of luck getting the 1,000 plus to show up. All right, the next item on the agenda, we've moved up Community Services Committee report because tonight we've got several representatives from the Leadership Stephenville class here. So I'll turn that over to the Community Services Committee Chair, Brady Pendleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Get my stuff together here. January 26th, we had a meeting of the Community Services Committee, and that committee consisted of myself, Mr. Nix, Mr. Sabine, and Mr. Wagner. We were all present, and we had a great presentation brought to us by 2 individuals down here on the end, Mr. Salt and Mr. Graves. It was a very exciting presentation because it's something we all believe in, I believe, anyways. Something I think we all support, at least the council is going to support it as of tonight, and that's the creation of a multi-purpose event center for the city of Stephenville. I think we can be in agreement that it's long overdue, and now, of course, there's lots of questions that lie ahead, lots of things to explore, and lots of work to do, but this committee is committed to that, the council's committed to it, and Leadership Stephenville's committed to it as well. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Graves, Mr. Salt, I believe want to come forward and have a couple of words about their plan of action, and hopefully get everybody fired up about getting behind their initiative. So go ahead, guys.
Brady, thank you very much. Mayor Keeney and council members, on behalf of Leadership Stephenville Class of 2015, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and briefly speak about this. We have several of our members here with us. Ilda's over there, and Carrie's there, and Jason's there, and Dr. DeTavio is right back there, and then, of course, the mayor is also in our Class of 2015. Have I missed others? LV, you're back behind.
Is the mayor going to pass?
Pat Bridges, and I can't, you're shorter than me back there, LV, I'm sorry. No, but we do. We appreciate it very much, the opportunity to be here. We want you to remind you that we are in the infancy of this, but we are very excited, just as Brady said. You know, there has been excitement in this. So I want to read to you just a little bit, bear with me, a little bit of the project overview and how we vision ourselves. As we see this, our class project name, as we have taken on, is the Multipurpose Center Advisory Team. And our class vision is to unite Stephenville and the surrounding Erath County with a positive and lasting impact by providing a facility to celebrate where community comes together. And that's very key for us, where community comes together. Our class mission is to collaborate, advocate, resource, and enable the construction of a multipurpose facility that builds community relationships in Stephenville for Erath County and beyond. Leadership Stephenville 2015 Project Overview. We exist to promote and advance the development and construction of a multipurpose facility center for Stephenville and Erath County area residents in order to enhance the recreational, social, educational, and cultural opportunities for the young and the not-so-young also. Such a well-planned facility in a community of our size will promote a healthy, livable community with opportunities for physical activity and education, as well as personal and cultural enrichment. The facility will offer residents access to current technologies and consider physical expansion opportunities so that it will serve succeeding generations to come. Design and research, this is what we entail in that, to provide the community with the most modern, most flexible, and most economically feasible facility that will support current and projected needs of the area while capturing the character, the identity, the quality, and spirit of what we know Stephenville to be. Organize the efforts to centralize our current city library, our recreation center, and the senior citizen center into a single facility with flexible use space and to replace obsolete facilities with modern facilities. To consider inclusion of common area spaces for events as well as office space for community nonprofit organizations. As far as location, if future requirement models allow, the center will connect to the city park, the Bosque River Trail corridor, and the nearby town square with obvious and easy access for vehicles and pedestrians. As far as financing, and this is key to us, we want to explore and secure all options of public and private financial contributions that will allow our city to enjoy the center without burdensome debt to the taxpayer. Secured contributions, specific tax revenue, and center revenues should service the debt and operational expenses without tax burden to the residents of Stephenville. If we can't afford it, we don't intend to build it. And I'll turn it over at this time to one of my co-members of Leadership Stephenville, Mr. Brent Graves, and he's going to give you a little bit more detail about this.
As if we have any more detail. On January the 5th, our Leadership Stephenville class president, Mayor Weldon, assigned committees. And the next day, Gary and I and the team began to meet with the library board, the senior citizen board, and the activity recreational board. And we did 3 meetings in 3 days. So this has all come about very fast. So we're trying to get our ducks in a row. But one of the things that we realize is the pattern of growth, as we all know, and I think we'll all agree, is coming towards Erath County. And we don't have a facility that'll hold 1,000 people for a meeting or a banquet or anything of that nature. And so to look at all the structures, and that's one of the things that our class did, is we saw the Senior Citizen Center. And it was made, one of the comments that was made was, here's the folks that have given the longest to our community, and this is the center that we've provided as a city. And so we wanted to do something there as a class. And then we see the library needs new facilities. And so this would be a multi-purpose center that would have meeting space, recreational space, senior citizen center, and a library, and maybe a recreational gym, something of that nature. So we have a lot of different ideas. We've talked to the architects, we've talked to Jeremy. He's got a lot of experience in buildings like this. We have 5 different committees. We have building design, which is important because we want to include as much as we can, but it has a cost to it. We have public presentation. It'll go to the Lions clubs and all the different organizations. Kind of update everybody where we're at, answer questions. We have a foundation that Gary's the chair of that'll be set up. It's a 501c3, so that when we do raise money to build this project, it has a place to go. What are our other 5 committees? Funding and partnerships, and then business plan of how the building would operate and how it would fund itself. And that's one of the things that we've looked at, is we are very serious about doing this in a manner that is not a bond election or anything like that would make it burdensome to the taxpayer. It's got to fund itself before we build it. So be more than glad to entertain any questions from the council about the process or what we foresee. Leadership Stephenville class of 2015. We could put a monument out by the city and says, "Welcome to Stephenville," and we'd be done. We know this is going to be a multi-year project, and so fortunately we have a great class that is up to the task, that wants to do everything we can to better Stephenville. So anybody has any questions, we'll be more than glad to answer them.
Any questions for the class? Okay,
Very good.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
Well, guys, I appreciate it a lot. I personally supported 100%. I don't know if you know this or not, but one thing I was thinking about is we all individually are glad you're doing this, and probably future people that run for these positions are glad you're doing this, because you're giving us a scapegoat now. We're asked about who's going to create the multi-purpose, or when's that going to be created, or how you're going to fund that. So now we can say Leadership Stephenville in charge of that. We're not responsible for that. So
Specifically,
Greg, Gary Saltor, bring Greg. That's one less thing I have to worry about tonight, so I appreciate that.
They'll do their numbers to give out.
I guess at this time, I will make the motion to adopt Resolution 2015-01, which is creating an advisory committee for the multi-purpose center.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been presented by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. Nix, to approve Resolution 2015-01 that would formally recognize and create the multi-purpose center advisory team comprised of Leadership Stephenville class of 2015. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that resolution carries a unanimous vote, and we're excited about this moving forward. And I want to thank the members of Leadership Stephenville team. Brady, your support within the committee structure, and very important member of this who's been pedaling really fast, Jeremy Allen, is I'll call him the coach for this team. He is bringing to this community some great ideas and initiative and some energy that's really going to help move this forward. And I just want to come back and touch on one thing, that the class, before they decided to do this, recognized that this is a multi-year effort, thus led to the commitment to create a 501c3 foundation to do this, so that as a class we can stay with this beyond this spring. And so that's the class's commitment to this, and I think that's really exciting and noteworthy. So it's exciting times. So thank you very much for that. And with that, then we'll move on to the presentation and consideration of the Chamber of Commerce tourism budget. And I'll ask Ms. July Danley to come forward.
Well, good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come. I am going to take advantage of the lead-in and say a little bit about Leadership Stephenville, if y'all don't mind, before I get into the tourism. When I had just graduated from Tarleton with my master's and was the director for Tri-County Agribusiness Association, I was recruited to participate in Leadership Stephenville as a graduate of the class of 2001. And that is one of the programs that helped me to believe Stephenville was where I needed to be, and the special place that it is, and to get plugged in with my talents into certain nonprofits and organizations. And that's one of my most favorite parts of the chamber, is getting to facilitate the Leadership Stephenville. And if you look at some of the projects that our Leadership Stephenville classes have accomplished over the years and the impact that that's had on the community, it's huge. From structures such as a Welcome to Stephenville sign, from the sign at the city park that is the welcoming sign, to starting a Big Brothers Big Sisters organization, to building a faith field for the All-Stars League, raising $25,000 for the Humane Society to upgrade their facilities. The list goes on because we challenge each of our leadership class members to come together as a team with their specific talents and resources and influence to leave an impact on their community. And so we challenged this leadership class, which is made up of some pretty important movers and shakers from different aspects of the community, that they had a challenge to beat the rest of the other projects. And so we're excited that they've taken on such a big task, because it's not something that their commitment will be through in May whenever they graduate from the class. And the fact that they're willing to commit their time to a long-term project says a lot about Stephenville and the future that we have. So I just want to commend the Leadership Stephenville class for having the courage to take on a big project, and look forward to the community's involvement in seeing it come to fruition. So I'll lead that into our tourism. On behalf of our board of directors, we want to express the appreciation for the positive relationship we have with the city. And we look forward to continuing to work with you to promote tourism in this community. Our chamber is governed by a board of directors, leaders in the business community that help guide all of our activities. And we have a couple of those board members here. Ms. Ilda, and then also LV are here, as well as, I know Daryl Brown is our board chair, and he has been watching his daughter play golf in Abilene today. So he sends his regrets that he couldn't make it, because he's driving on his way back as we speak. But the Chamber's mission statement is to support and promote Stephenville in a unified effort to enhance growth and improve the quality of life by implementing programs in the areas of community development, economic development, and tourism development. And we believe that it is an exciting time for tourism in Stephenville. And as some of you may know, occupancy tax revenues, which equate to hotel stay nights and visitors spending money in town, grew steadily from 2003 to 2008, and then took a little hit, as did the rest of the economy, in 2009 and 10, and then grew about 5% into 2011, about 13% in 2012, kind of held steady in 2013, and this past year we grew by about 16%. And so according to my records, 2014 is the best year ever for hotel stays in Stephenville, and that's exciting, and we look forward to 2015 being an even bigger year than that. Our community continues to benefit from the many visitors that come to town for everything from rodeos to expos, tournaments, festivals, business conferences, and more. And when it comes to tourism, the Chamber operates as your Convention and Visitors Bureau. We're the first place that people think of to call to ask about coming to town, visiting, relocating. We receive calls every day from visitors looking to come for all different reasons. Last year we had over 1,500 visitors walk through our door, answered over 5,000 phone calls, and a lot of those are looking for ways of things that they can do in Stephenville. We have a staff that's very passionate about promoting Stephenville, from answering phone calls, welcoming guests, designing marketing material, keeping the lobby stocked with promotional material, preparing visitors' packets, goodie bags for events, listing events on our website, coordinating with hotels for event rates, assisting event producers with the details. Our staff devotes a lot of their time and energy and resources into servicing visitors and promoting tourism. And because I know that y'all have a big, lengthy agenda tonight, I'm not going to go into detail of every single event or activity that we do, but I would like to go over a couple of the events on the budget that you see. We have about 15 major events that we support and numerous smaller ones. When our board looks at the decision on how much to support each event financially, we take into consideration the total number of hotel nights, their total expected attendance, and the amount requested from the producer. And along with financial support, we support the event with promotion, press releases, newsletter, email, as well as welcome packets and goodie bags and giveaways. But I'm just going to go over a few of the larger events on the schedule. The 40-plus Team Roping Championship Finals, and for those who may be wondering, that does mean 40-plus years old. So for team ropers that still like to do that as a hobby, it is a growing association that is not just Texas, it's all over the country, and that will be 4 weekends of roping with probably over 3,000 ropers per weekend that will be in town for each of those ropings and their championship finals here. So 3,000 ropers in one weekend, and they're spending a lot of money on gas and food and spending time here. The Cowboy Capital Barrel Series is a 6 weekend with over 1,000 barrel racers each weekend. The Cowboy Capital Mounted Shooting. 2 years ago, we were excited to entice them to come here, and it was a 4-day event the first year with the opportunity that it would become an 8-day event, and it has become an 8-day event. So having as many participants, they have about 1,800 entries that they're expecting this year. So having them stay over 8 days is exciting, and we will probably have a celebrity mounted shooting again. So if any of the other council members might want to take on your mayor and see if you can beat him in the mounted shooting, we're open to that. A couple of other ones, our Cowboy Capital of the World, do we have some takers? And I know that Jerry wants to get on a cutting horse and go against the mayor with that, so.
I do.
Our Cowboy Capital of the World Pro Rodeo, as most of you know, new association has taken it over the past few years and has added money for the contestants. We've increased the contestants by probably 150 to over 500 contestants. We've increased the attendance, as well as the surrounding activities before and after the event, from parades and sponsorship parties, just to other events that are bringing in people. So we're very excited about the increased attendance and notoriety that our rodeo last year had the largest payout of any 3-day rodeo in Texas. And so any of the rodeos that were the same format as ours, we had the largest payout. And so that's exciting. The Joe Beaver Junior Superstars Roping that is on Labor Day, this will be our 3rd year to host that, and that is over 500 families of students that are 21 and under. And so we love it when families come to town because they usually stay a little longer and spend a little more money. The Region 3 High School Rodeo and Finals, this will be our 2nd year. We were excited to get them to come here from a different community last year, and that's a 3 weekends, 2 regular weekends, and then one their actual high school finals will be here. A couple of others, the Spring Fling Bull Riding and Futurity. That is a 3-day event that will bring in over 600 entries. And when that means 600 entries, that means 600 bulls. Bulls that pricing anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000 is how much these bulls. And there'll be a futurity and then a sale. And those, both the bull riders and the bull owners, come from all over the world. We have Brazil and Canada and Mexico and all over the United States. So bull riding and the raising of bulls is a very big business, and a lot of people will be spending a lot of money in town that weekend. The Tarleton FFA contests, as everybody know, those are a huge recruitment opportunity for our community. We'll have about 9,500 high school students roaming lots of different properties and eating in our restaurants and possibly deciding that this is the friendly place that they want to come and get their education. So we're always happy to support that event. And then the last 2 events, the Ultimate Calf Roping and Finals. We've had an Ultimate Calf Roping here the last couple of years, and we are recruiting them to bring their finals here this year, which will be several thousand calf ropers on a weekend, and that'll be a 3-weekend series, 2 ropings in the finals. And the World Series roping is the last one that I'll point on. Team roping is a sport of its own. As you know, it's one of the events in rodeo, but the World Series of Team Roping is its own association similar to the United States Team Roping Championships that we have here. And the roping that they had in Stephenville last year, which is a qualifier for the World Series Finals in Las Vegas that's held during the same week as the National Finals, was the largest team roping event that the World Series has ever put on other than Vegas, their Stephenville roping. There will be 3,000 to 4,000 ropers every weekend for 3 different weekends here in Stephenville for the World Series. So that is very exciting. And just to give you an example, we are the Cowboy Capital of the World. At the National Finals Rodeo, we had 25 local contestants that competed, bringing home about $1.2 million. At that same time, at the World Series, and the National Finals Rodeo paid out about $6 million total, the World Series of Team Roping paid out $10 million in that same week. And we had probably 50 to 70 of our local people competing, and they brought home about $680,000 from that team roping. So not only are we getting people to come here and team rope, but when they go elsewhere, they bring all their cash money back here and hopefully spend it locally. So As you can see, several of our events that we support are at Lone Star Arena. We see that as our civic center, as our convention center. We don't necessarily have a place where we can host meetings and conventions. Hopefully, with the Leadership Stephenville class, we will, and we'll be able to recruit other type of events. But being Lone Star Arena is a major asset to us in bringing visitors to town. Along with supporting the events financially, as I said, we help facilitate accommodations for family reunions, corporate meetings, conferences, sporting tournaments. Right now, I'm working with the Stephenville Sox, and they're going to be hosting their second select baseball tournament here. They started last year small with just 4 teams, and we're up to about 12 teams this year. So today, Jennifer and I have been on the phone helping to block 100 rooms for a weekend in March for hotel rooms for their teams that are coming from all over the state to come play baseball, and appreciate Jeremy, who's the one who put us together to help work on that tournament. So, as you can see, our chamber staff is hard at work, utilizing the tax funds that you've entrusted to us to bring more people and ultimately more dollars to our community. And we look forward to continuing to use those funds to promote tourism, to improve the success of our current events, to hopefully recruit more events, and to continue to put Stephenville on the map and in people's minds as they're looking for places to visit. The proposed budget that you have in front of you takes into account the projected revenues for 2015 at the 4-cent allocation that we have had under agreement the past several years. And we believe that our figures show that we've been good stewards of the money that you've entrusted to us, and that we've brought a good return on the investment. And we look forward to continuing that relationship. So I will be glad to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Any questions for July? Okay, I guess not. Thank you very much, July. I appreciate that outstanding report and the great work that the chamber does for local businesses and bringing those events to town. So it's great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your support and look forward to continuing to partner with y'all.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I move that we accept the proposed budget presented by July.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. McDaniel to approve and accept the budget as presented by July Danley for the chamber. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is our comprehensive annual financial report. We've got Mr. Lewis Crane. Walter, why don't you go ahead and kick it off and make
Mayor,
the
thank you,
introduction.
council members. I'd like to present Lewis Crane with Rutledge Crane and Company, our outside auditors, to present our annual financial report. Thank you, Walter.
Mayor Weldon, members of the city council, city staff, and citizens. This has been such an upbeat meeting. It's unfortunate I get to do the boring part of it. But in truth, this is fairly upbeat also because you had a good year last year. In fact, you had a very good year. If we look over Exhibit A2, and I'll try to keep this sort of thing to a minimum since not everyone has a copy, we added nearly $3 million to the city's reserves on a full accrual basis, the same kind of accounting that General Motors, Ford, IBM, Apple, anyone else uses. These are the statements up front, A1 and A2, that were shoved onto the city so we could start trying to compare you to corporations back in 2003. And on this full accrual basis, where we count depreciation and all the other things cities don't normally do, you added almost $3 million. So I would say that was a very good year. If we go back over to the way we used to looking at it and used to budgeting on page 22, for our governmental funds, we added $836,000, which is also very good, because $1.2 million of that went to the general fund. We had some minor losses in some of the other funds, which are programmed because they're a capital project and we're spending down now. So overall, we did great there. We go over to the water and sewer fund. We looked on page 25. We added $1,483,000 to our water and sewer fund and our stormwater drainage and our other enterprise funds. So overall, we had a very good year here from a revenue and expenditure standpoint. So I thought I ought to address something a little bit different. I wanted to go bring up debts And I want to tie it in into something that's changing in 1 to 2 years, and that's the new Gatsby 68. If those of you on the council could go with me for just a minute to page 40, the footnotes, you'll see the debts, long-term debts of the city listed. And if we take a look on the bottom of page 40, we have a total of $5.2 million that we owe from our governmental type funds. This is our general fund and general operations. We look on the top of page 41, we have about $16.6 million that we owe in the water and sewer fund. So if we take those and add them together, we get about $22 million. Now, you could have a lot more because there is a table on page 87 that shows within the state of Texas what your top amount of debt based on your current valuations you could issue, which would be serviced by ad valorem taxes, and you could issue up to $24,600,000. And I don't foresee you ever getting near the limit. I've seen very few cities ever approach that. And right now, you only have $5.3 million covered by ad valorem taxes. The other is water and sewer revenue and that sort. The reason I wanted to bring this out to you is that the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, issued a statement, Statement 68, whereby we're going to have to start accruing that amount of unfunded liability we have in our pension plans. This has been discussed for a number of years. Back during 2008, and there was some part of that, we had a number of cities and other parts of the country who were underfunding their pension plans, and they had to file for bankruptcy. And it got everybody in an uproar because we've always put it in the footnotes, and you can see what the amounts are, but we've never actually recorded it as though it were a debt. So there is a methodology, and they're currently working on that methodology at TMRS, how we're physically, I think in my mind, so physically to me is writing numbers down, moving them around, how we're going to start showing it. It's not going to be all at once. It's going to be over a period of time. But if you'll go with me to one last exhibit on page 50, you'll see a little table that gives the last 3 years for 11, 12, and 13 because they value this as of 12/31. We have a current unfunded liability of $5,467,000. So in effect, on your financial statements, that's going to be treated as another debt that before was just disclosed, that now is picked up and added to the outstanding debt you have. So as you move forward with some of the exciting things that are going on, it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. This is something that's going to be added to, and that will also be used when you get your bonds rated. In your case, it's not an exciting thing. I was discussing with one of the council members earlier, Audit County, that has about the same revenues you have in South Texas. They have been funding retirees' insurance, and it works a lot like a pension. And a rule came in 5 years ago that you had to start showing that liability. They have an unfunded liability of $33 million, and they're scrambling to see, when you're bringing in $12 million a year, how you're going to fund that. There are only 2 or 3 ways it can be done, and none of them are very pleasant. So it's probably a good thing we're going to start doing this for cities also. Most of our cities are in good shape in Texas, and it's going to work out, but at least everyone will be able to see it, and that will just put us ahead of a lot of the other states. So you had a good report. We found nothing unusual. There were no prior period adjustments. It's not true in all the places we go, but you had a good year. And I really enjoyed listening to the presentations. It sounds like you're going to have a good year next year. And for myself, I'd rather be associated with someone having a good year. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address it, but most of it's discussed in the MD&A that your staff writes up front.
Okay, Mr. Crane, thank you very much. Any questions? Mr. Sabine, look like you've got a...
I just want to make sure that in the first part, letter I, the first couple of pages, it refers to as an unqualified audit, which means it's clean audit, there's nothing there. So as a result of that, unless there are some questions from the council or issues we need to raise with Mr. Crane, I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and accept his audit tonight as presented.
Seconds.
All right.
I want to accept it. I want to ask him something. Sure.
Okay.
It's fine to accept it, though.
All right, so we got a motion by Mr. Devine, seconded by Mr. Nix to accept the report, and I'll open for discussion, and go ahead, Boyd.
Just a kind of a general question. It sounds like the accounting industry is sort of hiding from this unfunded pension things. It's kind of being hidden back there like you don't want to look at it. Is that kind of what it seems like?
I would add to that the accounting industry, the federal government, I would add all the city councils, I would add all of it.
Yeah.
And in truth, it's kind of an ugly secret that we've all known about for the last 10 years, and all of a sudden the light clicked when some people started going down, and Orange County was one of the problems out in California. You may remember what it's 20 years ago. Well, when these things started to fall, and there was a little city up in Michigan, and this occurred in the mid-2000s, 2006, 7, and 8, when we really had a problem that had maybe a fifth your size. They had a $16 million unfunded pension liability for their police department, and when revenue started dropping, all they could do is file for bankruptcy. And this is what got everybody finally to take a look at this and say, not everybody looks back at the footnotes. And they've only been doing that for about the last 20 years. Prior to that, they didn't disclose your unfunded liability in the footnotes. So now we're going to put it where everybody can see it, and we should have done it 20 years ago.
I'm not just crying emergency or anything, but for everything that comes along, the sooner you face it, the better off you can handle it, So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
And our tendency as an accountant or as an auditor is usually, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. So we just keep loping along, and then all of a sudden you hit the bump in the road, and you've got to do something with it. So, and that's really where we are.
Mayor. And the good news is also the bad news. We have about a 5.4 million in unfunded liability right now. That's about the same as what it was last year, within a few tens of thousands of dollars. So we're rocking along. The issue is that number doesn't get any smaller because our investments, et cetera, and the retirement plan doesn't keep up with what the requirements are to pay the plan. So at some point, we're going to have to face the piper. If that number is if everybody retired today, all those who are eligible to retire today, that's what we owe. So we'd have to fund that out of cash. So it is something we need to deal with at some point.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, to be very frank with you, in my opinion, is not a problem right now, because the city's not just going to stop. Everybody get off the merry-go-round, and if it did, you'd have to write a check for that,
That's right.
theoretically. But at some point, if you don't take it down, it can get to be a problem.
We'll have to address that at some point. Right now, we're funding it. We're addressing it now.
Yes, we're going down. A few years ago, we had an accelerated rate to funding unfunded liability, and we are going down.
Well, we're funding right now at about, what is it, 15, is about 15.4, 15.5%. We're actually funding 2 to 1, which is 12%, to the employees 6%, and yet we're funding it 15.4% or so retirement now to try to catch up, and it's just barely doing that.
Yes, sir, that's right. But we've also gone down from 18% when we first had this crisis to 15%. So we have, in theory, gone down.
And what happened for the council and the citizens, what ends up happening is we had the council decided to pay a plan and not fund it. They went from 6% to 12% and didn't fund this extra 6% for several years. And then the interest goes up, et cetera, and so therefore the unfunded liability.
That's exactly right.
So it's one of those examples of us doing something and not paying for it, which is what I appreciate about the leadership Stephenville's comments. One of the comments, I'll just say to you, Mr. Crane, my wife is a very good auditor. I had her review this audit because she's a lot smarter than I am, and she said it's a very good audit, and I appreciate your work.
Well, she's a lot smarter than I am, too, I would assume. I found out when I was going to college that the best auditors are the ones who are the good C and D students, because you really have to dumb it down for us to understand it, which one is probably right to put it in there. Is she probably got out of auditing.
Yes, she did.
I
About a year ago,
was-
after about 25 years of city audits. Yes. She used to actually did the city of Stevenville for several years.
I'm familiar with her firm, and I thought a lot of them too.
Thank you very much for your work.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Crane. Any other questions? All right, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of accepting the financial audit as presented, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. The report's accepted. I did want to say one thing about this. Walter, I appreciate your work. Where'd he go? Yeah. With this, the detail that it takes to pull this together and stay in front of it. The other thing that I think it's important for us as a council to recognize is that this discussion about the pension is the same discussion we need to and will continue to have about infrastructure. And one of the responsibilities of city government is to preserve the city long-term. And the only way you can do that is to project long-term and make sure your revenues cover what your needs are. And so as we, the council, have talked about capital improvement plans and understanding our infrastructure, it's the same discussion as this pension discussion to say, do we as a community have a plan and a path to ensure the viability of our community long-term? And so this is another example of us pursuing that, and we just need to keep up that diligence. So thank you very much.
Mayor, I don't mind. One other issue is it February 25th is our finance committee? 24th is our finance committee meeting, and we'll be going over the details of this as we prepare for 3 other documents we'll have to sign and approve at future councils.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Crane. Walter? All right, next we've got the police department here to talk about an annual requirement on racial profiling.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As y'all know, each year prior to March 1st, we're legislatively required to come before you and present our racial profiling information from the year before. But before we look at the numbers real quick, just something I wanted to go over with y'all is we're simply required to gather the numbers and report them to the state as they are, but we've always felt in the last few years that it's very important to not just gather the numbers, but kind of take a deeper look at them and try to gain a better understanding of what we're seeing. So we commission an audit or a report and analysis with Del Carmen Consulting, and that's led by Dr. Alex Del Carmen, and he's regarded pretty much within the state of Texas and probably nationally as a leading expert in the field of racial profiling. He is also, I guess as of last August, became the executive director of Tarleton State University's School of Criminology, Criminal Justice, and Strategic Studies there at the university. And so we enjoy having that relationship with him and getting that information from him. And one of the things that you'll see about the numbers is when you look at those charts, they're compared to some baseline numbers that you see there. Where that baseline comes from is we use what's known as the U.S. Census Fair Roads Standards, as opposed to just strictly census numbers, which is a compilation of total number of people in a given community. The Fair Road Standards is households that have access to vehicles, so it's a little bit different number. This standard that we use has actually been requested to be used by several civil rights groups since 2002, and they would like all police departments to use this because they think it gives a much fairer look at it. So that's what we've done. If you move over to the first chart, it just kind of gives a breakdown of our total contacts by race and ethnicities. You can see our searches that were done, and then a breakdown of whether they were consensual or probable cause searches and custodial arrests that were made. The second chart is just kind of a total compilation of percentages broken down by race or ethnicity in those contacts. The third chart is something that was new with the 2009 legislature, with an additional requirement for officers to state whether they did know or did not know the race of the person they stopped prior to making the stop. And so you see a breakdown in those numbers for what they knew before and what they didn't know. And then the last one, which we like to see just the way it is a report on complaints we received against officers for racial profiling, and that is 0. And we would like that to continue. We make a large effort to educate all the officers on our policy, and make sure they understand what the state law is and the goals of the department and how we want to treat citizens. And then if you come over to the department, one of the requirements of the law is to let citizens know if they wish to file a complaint on racial profiling and have that information readily available. So in the lobby of the police departments, you find a card like this that has an English and Spanish information on how to make a complaint like that. And if you go to our website, it's actually not just on the website, but it's a quick link right out on the front page so that people can get directed to it. And I'll answer any questions if you guys have them.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we approve the annual Stephenville Police Department racial profiling report as presented.
Second.
All right, does Mr. Hogan, motion by Mr. McDaniel, second by Mr. Hogan to accept the Stephenville Police Department racial profiling report as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries, and report's accepted. Thank you. All right, now we'll move into the Planning and Zoning Commission section of the agenda. And at this time, I will open a public hearing for discussion and action on a request to rezone Lot 2, Block 13, and Lots 1 and 4, Block 14. And ask Ms. Miller to come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Planning and Zoning Commission did meet on Wednesday, the 28th of January, to hold a public hearing and make a recommendation to you on this request. They voted to recommend approval of this request from I, industrial, to R3. There were 21 letters sent to property owners within the 200-foot circle. The newspaper publications were made on a timely basis, and as you know, now I'm sending a lot more information in those letters so that they understand what they're getting. They also get a list of land uses in the current zoning district as well as the proposed zoning district. So I've gotten a lot of phone calls, and I like that because I like the feedback that people get. When they get those letters, it's kind of new to them, and so they call and they get a lot of information about what is a rezoning request, what is it, maybe what their property is zoned. So I like talking to folks when they get those letters and what is this, you know? And so it's been a very good experience here in Stephenville. Okay, there you go, that's the 200-foot circle, 21 letters within the 200-foot circle. The property in flight is zoned R3. Property in purple, which are the two blocks, blocks 13 and 14, are zoned industrial. And that's the basis of the request. Those two blocks are being requested to go to the R3. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended that. Ryan Gailey is an agent. He was present at the zoning meeting, and he's present here tonight. He is, I think he has a contract on this property for future use. Future land use plan indicates that this property is to be commercial, which is a little different. You don't put industrial against single family. You don't also put commercial against single family. So it's a little different, and the people have been calling. Of course, you see the railroad tracks there. I can understand the industrial zoning, but as far as the future land use plan, this really doesn't jive at this point in time. Initially, to locate industrial against the railroad track certainly makes sense to some degree, but that's not how it has been utilized. This property in these two blocks is mostly vacant. There are some buildings toward the east end of block 14. They are in a state of disrepair and actually have a demolition permit ongoing to tear those buildings down, to prepare them for the new land use, which will be apartments. These two blocks represent about 4.5 acres of land, and with that could yield, by the zoning ordinance figures, it could yield 100 units. I think Ms. Gailey is also maybe anticipating approaching the council in closing the street there. I think it's Fifth Street. It goes through the property. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not improved. It's only improved to this street right here at the bottom, and so it doesn't go towards crossing the track. So there's nothing there now. It's just on paper, on the plat, it is a dedicated street. So in anticipation, telling you that he might be coming forward with a request to abandon that right-of-way and purchase it from the city. Be glad to answer any questions. Giving you an aerial, the list of uses for the R3 and the industrial zoning classification. I believe that's about it. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nix?
Thank you for your report. I've got a couple of questions. In driving by there, I think there's a single-family residence on one of those lots, but it looks like it does not have an electric meter, and it appears to not be occupied. Is that what I understood?
That's correct.
Okay. The other building, for those who've been here long enough, I think is the old Asher Egg Farm.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
I think I heard that, yes.
And I drove by there and looked at that property, and it's been a long time since it's been a productive piece of property.
Yes.
You did not, or I did not find in your plan if we had adequate water and sanitary sewer in that area to support a multifamily development like that.
Yes, we do.
And both of those are there and available to the developer.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
and that was one of my questions,
Okay.
because that's critical when
Of
you
course.
put in a use like that.
Of course.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, Mayor.
All right.
Director Miller, do we have the aerial on the overhead
I hope we
also
do.
for the audience to see?
Yes, it's not, I guess it's not.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to thank you for the use of the aerials, because that is so very helpful to us to be able to see every tree and every structure and
It does help. It does
and every
help.
street that is dedicated there, but not through.
improved.
And I'd just like to thank you for your thorough presentation.
I'll always do that for you, and I'm sorry it's not up here on the PowerPoint, but yes, I will always try to give you as much information as you can tolerate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Miller? All right, then, at this time, I'll ask anyone wishing to come and speak in favor of the recommendation. Come forward at this time. All right, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Ryan Gailey, 104 Cantor Lane, Stephenville. I'd be the one that would be developing this piece of property at a later date. I do not have a specific plan for it now as far as what I would put on it. I can just tell you what I've done in the past is, like the townhome style units in the past. We're currently building some now. And that's what we've kind of done, is probably kind of stick to that same sort of plan probably in the future. And if you have any questions, or anybody else here would be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ryan? I did have one question. Is there any special sound abatement or construction techniques that you would need to consider because of the proximity to the railroad? Or is that just,
Not that I'm aware of.
okay. I just wanted to rent them if you might need to do that, or if there's any criteria that we have that requires that. Okay. All right. Good deal.
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay.
Brian, this is almost unrelated, but they're on Alexander Road. Do you have any updates on construction plans for that particular location that we rezoned for you for assisted living and apartments both there?
The apartments, when we did the R3, are going in behind it there on Second Street, right next to the Super 8. That's where those are going in, and the property on Alexander, of course, right behind it, that faces Alexander, and that has been put on hold for now due to some government lending there. So, but it's still in works, it's still moving forward, and that's what's planned to go there, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to come and speak in favor of the proposal? Okay, seeing none, anyone wishing to come and speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance 2015-01.
Here, a second.
I second it.
All right, it's been
Would that be 02 though? Didn't we have a?
That's a resolution.
That was resolution.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's, motion's been made by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. McDaniel to approve ordinance 2015-01 to rezone Lot 2, Block 13, and Lots 1 and 4, Block 14 from I industrial to R3 multifamily residential. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries as presented. All right, the next item is I'll open a public hearing for discussion of a replat of Lot 14, Block 21.
This is a public hearing replat. I don't know that you have seen these before. When they're zoned single-family or duplex in the last 5 years, a replat must go through a public hearing and also have notification of everyone within 200 feet of the replat. Planning and zoning met on the Wednesday, the 28th, to hold a public hearing on this request, and they're recommending approval as submitted. The property is on Tanglewood, or is in Tanglewood North. There is the copy of the replat. Do you have, I just want to, that's a burial, and something else. Single family, at the 200-foot circle, they're notifying everyone within the 200-foot circle of the proposed replat. This is one big lot at this point in time. They want to divide it into the two lots as you see it there. The lot on the corner, on the curb, has a single-family home on it. The other lot is vacant, and they wanted to subdivide it so they could perhaps sell it at some point in time. Did have a few questions and calls on this particular replat and cleared that up. A lot of people thought it was a zoning case. Of course, it's not. It's just a replat. And again, I'm not sure that you've seen these before. There were 20 letters sent to property owners within the 200-foot circle on this replat. The area is served by 6-inch water and 6-inch sewer main in Bluebonnet. Both lots have the minimum requirements for the R1 zoning district. Alfred Lee and Dora Lena Dupriest are the current owners of the property, and they're requesting this replat. Matthew Price, who was at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the original hearing, could not be here this evening. He had some extenuating circumstances, but all other aspects of the replat meet subdivision regulations, and it is ready for approval.
Okay, any questions for Judy?
Do you not have the authority to do this replat?
State law doesn't allow me to do it.
You're different here in Stephenville.
No, state law requires that anytime you have anytime you have a replat that has been zoned either duplex or single family in the last 5 years, you're required by state law to hold a public hearing and notify people within 200 feet. It is not an administrative plat.
I don't think the council has seen this before.
I know you haven't.
Are there any other questions for Judy?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nix?
Judy, this, looking at the aerial and driving by, they've got a privacy fence and you can't see in
I
there.
know.
But it looks like there's something in that lot.
I totally agree, because I just.
Volleyball court?
It's just some sort of, I'm understanding now from a call that I received from a property owner, it's just some plantings that she had done, the owner had done. It looks kind of different, doesn't it?
It does. It looks like it almost looks
It's
like
like
a
a
structure.
slab or
Yeah,
something.
a slab.
Yeah.
Okay, but
But
it's.
it's not.
Okay.
It's not. It's just a planting area or trees. They say there's a lot of orchard kind of trees in that
Okay,
area.
and I can almost see the outline of trees in that now that you say that, okay.
Yeah.
My second question is,
Mr. Nix, if you'd like, we can refer this to the Intelligence Committee. And see.
I'm thinking we need to do a flyover with the U2 or something. I'm just thinking.
Can do.
Go ahead.
My other question is unrelated probably, but it is related. When you send letters out, you send letters to the owners on record of a specific piece of property.
Correct.
Do people who rent property get any notification of what's happening perhaps next door or across the street or whatever?
No, we're only required to send out letters for those owners that are listed on the appraisal district tax rolls.
Is there any way to notify people who rent property? Because I've had people ask me this, and I don't know how to do it unless you just send it to an address. But I've had people ask me about this because they were involved in a rezoning or something, but they didn't get a notification because they're not the owner of record of that property. And I thought, well, that seems unfair, but I don't know if there's a way to legitimately and easily deal with that so that those people know.
I don't know of any, of all the cities I've worked in over the last 30-some-odd years, I
Okay.
don't know of any easy way.
Well, that's going above and beyond the requirement, but I didn't know if there was a way to deal with that or not.
You just hope that the property owner does somehow let them know of it.
Okay.
Sorry,
All right, thank you.
sorry.
I have a quick question, Director Miller. It seems like when the original house here on the corner was built, they had all this square footage because it's an oversized lot. Now they're having it replatted and cutting it in half. I know there's not a problem with minimum square footage on the house, but it seems like it's overbuilt for the small lot that they're left with. That's just okay?
It is okay. If it meets the it meets the subdivision regulations and the zoning ordinance requirements, it's okay.
It's a lot of house on a little lot.
It does look like.
Thank you.
Less mowing.
Less mowing, good for retired folks.
That's right. Any other questions for Judy? All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposal? Or anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, then I'll close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve this.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wagner, seconded by Mr. Nix to approve ordinance 2015-02 for the replat of lot 14, lot 14, block 21. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries, approving ordinance 2015-02. All right, now we'll move to opening a public hearing for discussion and a request, Timber Ridge Church to replat lot 1, block 15, Clifton Hills addition, 200 block of Clifton Street, zoned R2.
Thank you, Mayor and the council. Again, another replat that has been zoned single-family or duplex in the last 5 years. Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on Wednesday, last Wednesday, and has recommended approval of this replat as submitted. The property was, again, one big lot, and now they're subdividing it into two. The old church building is located, is vacant at this point in time, and then a church, like parsonage or residential type dwelling is on the far lot, and they're keeping that and will utilize that for church purposes. I believe they're trying to sell this, or maybe already have sold that lot as a church for someone else. It is the Timber Ridge Church that has moved to another location at this point in time. Let's see, we notified, let's see, how many property owners? There was quite a few on this one, I believe 38 or so. 38 letters were sent to property owners within the 200-foot circle. There's 6-inch water, sewer lines there, and it's a pretty straightforward replat, so no one within the 200-foot circle actually called on this one. But they did get the letters, and we did the notification in the newspaper as well. Zoned R2.
Okay, any questions for Judy? Doug?
When they replat the property, if the existing church remains as a church, is there going to be adequate parking for the potential occupancy? I know some other churches in town have trouble with that right now, not having adequate parking.
Well,
Will it restrict the new owner and not be able to use it because of, if you lose that much, I'm sure they haven't used it in the past, but if they lose that part of the property is .597 acres, does that eliminate some of their parking requirements?
it's possible, but, we'll look at it when the certificate of occupancy is applied for, from whomever buys the new church. We will look at it at that time to see if there is adequate.
And I'm assuming you've discussed that with the current landowner,
Yes.
that problem? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Judy?
What kind of entity is the church? Is it a limited liability or,
I don't know. I really don't know.
well, who's dealing as the owner? Who's dealing with you as the owner of the church?
The pastor, and I was dealing with, the surveyor actually filed a plat, as he is required to do. The owner is not required to file the plat, the surveyor is required to file the replat to the planning department.
Okay, but it doesn't identify the owner of the church.
Well, the application from the surveyor said it was Timber Ridge Church. Timber Ridge Church.
Okay, I just was curious.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then I'll ask anyone wishing to come and speak in favor of the proposal. Anyone in opposition? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing, thank you, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the plat, ordinance number 2015-2, requested by Timber Ridge Church, replat of Lot 1, Block 15, Clifton Heights Edition.
3.
Correction.
No, it's 2. That's the second ordinance.
Okay.
An ordinance isn't required to approve the plat.
Okay, so we've got there in the subject an ordinance line, but we're just gonna have a motion to approve the replat without an ordinance. So I'll just accept your motion, Ms. McDaniel, and I'll listen for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Zachary. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the replat, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Approving the replat, Lot 1, Block 15.
Good. You okay, Jeremy?
All good. That's just to get us a little momentum going into the last public hearing of the evening. Discussion, a request to replat Lot 2D and 2C, Block 135 City Edition. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is, again, a very simple replat, meets all the subdivision regs. The P&Z did meet on the 28th of January to recommend approval to you. It is on Washington, 1186 Washington, at the corner of McAnally and Washington. It is, someone told me what that used to be there.
Subway.
Subway. And it's gone now, and the new owners want to put in a small strip center of about three different renters there. I know there's a pizza place going in, so with that, in that strip mall, so the old strip center. So the property is served by 4-inch water, 6-inch sewer line, both in the Washington Street area. Currently vacant. You can see it from the aerial. And it's very straightforward replat, ready to be approved because it meets all the subdivision regulations.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Miller?
And this may be a question as much for you, Mayor, is I'm sure they start turning their plans to build on that property, and we're looking at straightening the street there and changing Washington as a possibility in the next few years. TxDOT and Charlton, we all get it on the same. Well, how does that affect their plans? I guess it's based on what the current setbacks are.
Exactly, and that's the only thing. We do not have any effective plans from TxDOT to show us. I mean, if we did, we could certainly deal with it through this replat.
Well, again, I just hope that whoever it is that's putting in the construction will understand that Washington's likely going to change at some point in the near future,
Yeah.
and the foreseeable future.
Exactly.
Any other questions for Judy? All right, thank you. And this time I'll ask anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposal. All right, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the replat for 1186 West Washington as presented.
Second.
Has been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Pendleton to approve the replat as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries. The replat is approved as presented for Lot 2D and Lot 2C, Block 135, City Edition, 1186 West Washington Street. All right, well, thank you very much. This planning and zoning report this evening in actions. Okay, the next item we've got on the agenda is a discussion of economic development strategy. I know most of the council was at the meeting the other evening that we had at the fire station. Just a short description of that. We had a group that had been invited, and it was open as a public meeting with participation by Tarleton, Stedco, the Chamber, the city, and we received at that time a presentation from Mr. Jeff Moore, who's been providing this consultation on the development of an economic development plan of action that includes one of the things we're going to consider this evening, which is a call for a special election, and we'll get into more detail in that. One of the discussions that took place that evening also was whether to seek to have an election in May or November, because you can only do this during called election times. And there was consensus from that to go ahead and have a discussion about something happening in May. The other thing that we talked about was the need for a plan to support the strategy, and so one of the things that I know, and I'll turn the floor over to Pat Bridges to talk about is the need for us as a community to put a plan in place, a strategic plan, an economic development strategic plan that would then support our moving forward with an economic development strategy. And we do have money in the budget for economic development in this fiscal year, And so the concept is to simultaneously pursue an economic development strategic plan that would then be in place in time for us to pursue. So Pat, if you want to go into some more detail with that, or kind of what you're working on for us.
With regard to the plan, I'm currently in contact with several different consultants who specialize in developing these type of plans for communities. And I hope to have several proposals for the council to consider and take a vote on at the March meeting. And then whichever one's selected, have them move forward immediately. It's probably about a 4-month process to come in here and meet with staff, meet with council, meet with stakeholders in the community, and get it down on paper, the strategy that we want to use to continue to develop this community going forward. And so I hope to have that for you to vote on at the March meeting.
Okay, any questions for Pat about that?
Make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Pat mentions the money in the budget. We do have $50,000 currently set aside for that for this fiscal year. Additionally, whether or not the special 4B type tax is approved, we're still gonna have to have a plan, because we're gonna do something. And so I think it's a good idea. So I appreciate Pat bringing that to us. I think we need to get on with it.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, it's my understanding that you can use some of this 4B money for, if we wanted to build a special event center, that would fall under the type of, I believe there are cities that have utilized a 4A, 4B structure to, so Mr. Graves, that might be something that y'all look at. I mean, you're gonna need some resources, and this could be a huge tie-in with a lot of cities, I believe, have utilized this structure to build that special event center. Is a huge economic development resource for the city, so just an idea there.
Yeah, and that you are correct with that, and so thank you, Casey, for bringing that up. Okay, so Pat, we'll just look forward to getting your report in March on that, and we'll proceed with that. The next item on the agenda is to consider adopting an ordinance to order a special election, and with this, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Savine.
Thank you, Mayor. The issue of economic development is something the council has talked about since I've been on the council. It's the 4th year we've been talking about it. This is the first year that we've taken some action. I want to thank Boyd Wagner and Casey Hogan particularly. They're the two people that kind of kicked it off and have been pushing real hard. Particularly Boyd and the work that he's done in getting all the information together and so on. And so I'm going to allow him to give a little bit more about, if he has, I just sprung it on a few minutes ago, if he wants to say something about the 4B election. Particularly, we're doing it tonight because we have a certain amount of time to get it done, to post it and get it on the election cycle for May. And so that's the reason for tonight. So I'm going to let Boyd have a few minutes.
I appreciate all the notice, Doug, that's okay.
Well, in 25 minutes, you're a lawyer. Isn't that what y'all guys do? Cross-examine?
Excuse me. What this is I'm not gonna talk to you like you already know everything about it, but the idea is to have a 1/8 cent sales tax to go to economic development. And that is not an additional 1/8 cent sales tax. It's just a diverting it from other places in the tax situation. And it can and will be used for the city of Stephenville. So if you're worried about that being just an extra tax, it's not necessarily that. And based on our current sales tax of about $5.3 million, that would bring in around $450,000 a year to do that sort of thing with. Now, does it work? Well, let me give you just some real life examples. Looking at Stephenville, Brownwood, Mineral Wells, and Cleburne. We're the only one of those cities that doesn't have this type of economic development corporation. They all have them. You compare those same 4 cities on the median family income that's how much the people are making. We're last among those 4 cities. And you look at the cost of living, we're last. And if you look at percentage of people living in poverty, we're last. So what we have in common with those people is that, or don't have in common with them, they've been doing that and we haven't. And somebody at this meeting that night said, why does Brownwood have a industrial park and we don't? And I just popped off and said, I bet it's because they had an Economic Development Corporation. So I called them the next morning. They had one they formed one in 1990. They started working on the industrial park in 1992, and they have one. There's 39 towns in Texas that are eligible for this type of a corporation, between 15,000 and 20,000 towns, and 34 of them have them, and 5 don't, and so that's 87% that have them. Now, we may be smarter than they are for not having one, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I'll give you a couple of examples, and this economic consultant, Jeff Moore, he is a city attorney for Roanoke and the Colony. And in the last 7 years, from 2009 to 2014, Roanoke's sales tax has gone up from $7 million to $14 million. And their property tax has not gone up in 18 years. He's also the city attorney for the Colony, and they've been there for a while. Their property taxes have gone down every year that he's been over there. Well, I'm not saying he's doing all that, but he's associated with cities that have this Economic Development Corporation. Brownwood, somebody said something that Brownwood wasn't doing anything, and last July, I just poked around in Brownwood. That weekend, they had announced that they had a new grocery store from, what place in Lubbock, what is the name of it? United. And their Economic Development Corporation tried to get them to come in there, and they wouldn't even come and talk, so they went to Lubbock and talked to them. And they put together a package of $350,000 in incentives. That's not all cash, that's various things. And they got them in there, and I've forgotten how many employees, a whole lot of employees, you know. And so they were aggressive about doing it. My brother lives in Gunnison, Colorado, and I go up there pretty much. That town is less than half the size of our town. The county is less than half the size of our county, and they have a sales tax up there, and their basic all-around center has 2 full-size basketball courts, 2 full-size indoor swimming pools, a senior citizen place, and a cafeteria, and a climbing wall, and some other things. And I don't know exactly how they funded it, but I know now it takes about $500,000 a year to maintain it. They're getting $250,000 from sales tax, and like I said, this sales tax would develop $450,000, and $250,000 in dues. And when you get to, if you get to be, I think it's like 55 or 60, you join the thing for annual dues of $70 or $80, and it's open 363 days out of the year. So there's just lots of things that it can do, and I think in the long run, it probably will raise the sales tax. And, sales tax is so much different from the property tax, in my opinion, because that's kind of a voluntary tax. You don't pay that stuff unless you buy stuff. And it also, Roanoke talks about OPM, other people's money. They get a lot of people to come in there and spend money, so you're getting other people to pay for those things. So I think almost all these towns improve their economy when they have these corporations. And can you do it without it? Well, nobody really does. So some try, but it doesn't really work, I don't think so. I just think it's a good idea, and if it doesn't work, you can vote it down in a year or two. It's not as if you're tied to it forever. Now, sometimes when I'm thinking about taking risks, I wonder about what's the negative part of it. It's like a lot of times there's not much negative risk. I don't think there's much negative risk. Now, if you're talking about walking a tightrope across New York City or something, there's some negative risk in that. But there's not any significant negative risk in this, I don't think. So it's kind of I just think it's a good idea, and I think I move that we adopt this, and I move that we have this election in May of 2015 and submit it to the voters, and it's going to take some work between now and then to convince them, because anytime you're talking about taxes, it's, people are worried about that. I think that about covers what I had to say.
Okay, Mayor, I got a couple more comments if I can.
Okay, was that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved by Mr. Wagner, seconded by Mr. Savine to consider adopting ordinance 2015-02, or a special election to be held on Saturday, May 9th, to submit a joint ballot proposition to the eligible voters of the city of Stephenville, Texas. All right, discussion?
One of the biggest questions that came up at the public meeting that we held was, how do you pay for it? Now, there's a fear about if we take $450,000 out of our budget, what does that do to operations and stuff? And again, Walt and I worked together, and he gave me some information, and based on projections of our increased revenue over the last 2 years, as well as our expenses, we can fund a $470,000 worth of economic development money, and it not affect, we'll still actually have more money for reserves, and that not have to cut any city services at that point. So the funds are there. In addition to that, and who knows, that's projections, but I don't know a business in Stephenville, Texas that's successful that doesn't base their future on projections. You gotta decide what you're gonna do next year, otherwise you're gonna sit where you are, and you look at your belly button, you get dizzy. So, I think we've done some projections, I think the money will be there, but even if it's not, for the council, if you wanna look on your audit report on page 32, it talks about unassigned cash reserves. It's not all cash in that sense, but the assets we have access to is $8.879 million right now. And even if we do, we have set aside the requirement, or we've decided to set aside about $3.5 million for a 90-day, in case of catastrophe, we operate because we had no other revenues. And so even if you took that 3.45 out, you have $5 million plus in unassigned, unobligated funds that if we needed to for 2 or 3 years because it didn't turn out correctly, we'll just take it out of reserves. And I don't think that's going to happen. It's basically the same thing that happened when we started making projections. It's how we passed the pay plan. We started looking at what our revenue is going to be. And we had, those who were on the council at the time will remember it was a doomsday, what if. Well, if you listen closely to the auditor's report, our fund balance continued to grow even though we started spending more money on the pay plan. So the money will be there. I feel confident in that. So I do believe it's a good thing. I do want to again say thanks to Boyd and to Casey for their hard work on that.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. Real simple look at it. My wife went to Lowe's on Granbury this afternoon to get something she couldn't get here in town. Then she sends me a picture of a hot fudge sundae at Brahms.
She brought you one back, didn't she?
No, yeah. So, we need to get with the program.
Mayor, I have a couple quick comments. We have been working on making these decisions for months, and I all along have had a criteria of 4 things for a economic development corporation. For me to vote for it at the polls and to vote for it tonight. One is that it will require no property tax increase. The second one is that it is completely city controlled. The city council will approve the expenditures of the revenues, since they come from our sales tax, of the EDC board. The third one is that we have partners, that it be made up of partnerships, and these partners have seats on the board. And the fourth one is, for me to support it, that it be completely transparent to the voters. No curtains, no smoke and mirrors, that it be laid out there, easy for everyone to understand, and that an education program be available, town halls to be able to answer everyone's questions. And what we have here that we're about to vote on meets that criteria. So I'm going to be supporting it. And anyone who's not supporting it, I heard was going to be tarred and feathered.
Mayor,
Mr. Hogan.
I just want to commend the council for having great vision. I think 10, 20, 30 years from now, you'll look back at this vote, if it does pass in May, and say this is one of the things that really changed the city of Stephenville. And I know we don't want to change, there's so many great things about our city, but I think there's a consensus out there that we want our city to grow in a responsible way, and I think this will allow us to do this. When I first got elected to the council, I asked some staff members, what is our economic development strategy in Stephenville? And it basically was, our door is always open. Well, that's not good enough. That's not an economic development strategy. by any means. We need to be out on the road, just like Mr. Wagner said. When United Supermarkets told Brownwood no, they didn't take no for an answer. They were aggressive and they put together an incentive package. And I used to argue with people all the time because I'm pretty conservative, and some of my conservative friends say, well, you should never have to have an incentive for a business to come to a city. That's not right. That's not the right way to go about business. And it sounds great, but it's just not the way things work. What did Brownwood have to do to get United? Well, they had to go and offer them $320,000 worth of incentives. But how much in the long term is the city of Brownwood going to gain as far as a sales tax and property tax from United Supermarkets being in Brownwood? And the big problem that we have in Stephenville, I've noticed, is we don't have the resources. We got good people. We've got great things to offer in our community. But we don't have the resources, and the 4B tax is going to be able to give us the resources combined with the economic development plan to go out and recruit businesses to this town. So I'm excited about this. I fully support it, and I thank Mr. Wagner and the mayor and the council for their support and their vision. And I think we'll look back at this day a long time from now, and it'll be really something to be proud of. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting ordinance 2015-02, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries, unanimous vote to adopt ordinance 2015-02. I do want to say a couple of things before we leave this topic, because I think it's important for the community to understand that the legislation that the state of Texas provides cities to do this is in its 25th year of enactment. This is not a new program. It is proven, as Mr. Wagner has pointed out, to be very successful. But I see it as a way for us as a community to come together with a shared vision of what our economic future should be. And I'm pleased that Pat Bridges is already working on a strategic plan effort to pull that together, because this is not just about, and it would be nice to have a Brahms hamburger after this, but this is not just about retail.
Sorry, Jay.
This is about looking comprehensively at the way to complement what we already do well. There are things in this community that are primary money makers for this community. And so how do we enhance that and leverage who we are to carry us forward economically in the future? It's about raising the number of wage in our community. But secondly, I would argue that it is about making our city government more efficient, because it focuses our effort in a specific way to execute a strategy for our community. And that, by definition, is creating efficient government. And so it's getting in the game, but it's also doing it in an efficient and effective manner. And I'm excited, and I'll share Mr. McDaniel's view that we as a council owe it to the community to allow you to be completely informed and be completely transparent about this as we move forward. So together we can make this a great success for our community moving forward. So my thanks to the council for your work to date, and just encouraged by us coming together on this issue. It's very important for our community. All right, with that, then we'll move to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Sabine, seconded by Mr. Hogan to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved as presented.
Where's Joe Cousy?
All right, city administrator comments.
Just a couple of quick announcements. On February 16th, the Personnel Committee will meet, as will the Community Services Committee. A couple of different topics to go over. And then, as Mr. Sabine mentioned, on the 24th of this month, Finance Committee to meet. That's all I have.
All right, council members' comments. Mr. Hogan.
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Wagner.
I just have one about approving city employees. The ordinance says that the appointment of all employees under the direct supervision of the city administrator shall require approval by the city council, which means we have to, I guess, a vote to approve all those. There's two of them up for approval tonight, and I think we found out about, it was got on the agenda for the first time, and I think it's To me, the city council hadn't had time to evaluate those, but I think it's a little bit fast, but that's the only comment I have to make.
Okay? Mr. Sveen?
One of our greatest resources as a city is the staff that work for the city. And particularly tonight, because if we look at the audit that was presented, I want to again say thanks to the staff who presented, who got the stuff together. Walt does a great job, and so do those who work with him. So, thanks, Walt.
All right.
I have a couple things. Pat, I wanted to let you know and the staff know that quick approval of the consent agenda is a compliment to you and your hard work. He wasn't through talking before Doug made that motion.
I do that a lot, though.
Heard a second. And also, just to point out to folks that don't have an agenda, on paying for some utility work that we had done, it was pointed out in our agenda packet that the subcontractors were all checked with, all known subcontractors were checked with to make sure that they had been paid before we authorized the payment of the contract for this work. That's a good practice there. The other thing is, when you have time to schedule the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting, if you could give Matt Harpole a call and schedule it when it would be convenient for him to come visit with the committee. There has been much discussion in the community about the safety of all these new bright digital lights on the streets at nighttime. And I'm not looking to have the committee send forward an ordinance restricting it. What I'm looking for is how we can work through the fellow who's selling the signs and the private businesses to maybe have some voluntary changes made so that they're not so blinding to the drivers. Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Pendleton?
No comment.
Mr. Nix?
No, sir.
Ms. Zachary? Mr. Warren?
I'm good.
Okay. I've just got one comment before I call us into executive session. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. I'll now call us into executive session in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Law, Section 551074, personnel matters at 7:17.